from the guys that are there at training camp, from the videos that we're seeing, I hear a conscious effort to hold back and to like slow their roll down from what they're seeing from JD. I've never heard that before. Pop, how you doing, man?
Son, how are you?
Doing good, doing good. Pop's checking in from a land far, far away. I'm in my usual spot here, but we're coming at you live here, guys. We are 5 subscribers away from 500 subs, so you know what that means, guys. If you are one of the first 5 people watching this, you have a guaranteed chance to enter. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm sure there's still time if you're watching it. Hit that subscribe button and send us an email at domandpopgiveaway1@gmail.com with your name, address, and shirt size. Instructions are also going to be included in the pinned comment, and that'll get you entered to win a Jaden Daniels jersey. Guys, thank you for all the subs we've added. We are so close. Let's end it this week.
Please, yeah. We're very close, and we'd love to come on next week and be talking about the raffle.
Yeah.
Raffle off that jersey. Lots of great entries.
Sweet. That would be
Love
sweet.
the nice comments on the emails. Keep them coming. And hopefully it's first of many.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. This is going to be Dom and Pop to the moon. That's all I got left to say. Let's keep it going.
We're going to keep it rolling.
This week, Pop, training camp starts. We're here. That's where Pop's checking in from Ashburn. He's actually been taking reps at left tackle. We're going to give him a shot there.
Pop's checking in from vacation. That's dedication. Grinding. I'm not Aaron Rodgers.
No.
Not Aaron Rodgers. Didn't ask for an excused absence.
He found some Wi-Fi connection out in Egypt.
I mean, word has it the Boston Insider did volunteer to replace me this week. But
Boston Insider's on vacation too, actually. So,
oh, no.
I might have had to do a solo pod. But we pulled through. We got Pop in for us, so we're good to go. Pop, Dad's favorite topic. We're going to start right off with it. Marcus Mariota taking snaps with the ones. Jaden Daniels still splitting time. I'm sure Pop is unhappy about it. Pop, you go ahead and get us started.
I'm okay with it right now in terms of the way that it's approaching. I'm not sure it makes sense. That's really the question. How much longer does this quarterback competition, them splitting reps? From all reports, listening to the Beltway Football Pod, JP Finley, and hopefully once future guest Mitch Tischler. Look for that invite, Mitch. Has said that Marcus Mariota has not looked good. There are clearly, it's one of those things that's really the encouraging thing about, Jaden Daniels is that he clearly looks like the best quarterback in camp. Competing against a vet like Marcus Mariota, to me, that's impressive. But how much longer, I don't know if you have an opinion on this, how much longer does this make sense to keep splitting those reps? And in my opinion, not much longer. It's gotta end soon because we need to get, we know the inevitable is coming, and I love Jaden's attitude about the whole thing, which we can get into the next point, but I think it's time very soon within the next 1 to 2 weeks where we got to put this to bed.
Sure. And I think at this point, there's plenty of work to be had, man. It's July 27th we're filming this. I'm not super worried about he's missing out on snaps or he's missing out on work, whatever. I've said it from the beginning, this whole Jaden not starting thing, this is more about Jaden and Marcus kind of setting the tone for the rest of the team in that, hey, we're going to compete all up and down the board. And you look and you see a guy like Jordan McGee right now taking snaps with the ones. You see Brandon Coleman taking snaps with the ones. These are things we'll talk about later in the pod. But it's just about keeping that culture consistent throughout, which is something that we didn't see in past regimes. Last year, if there was a quarterback competition last year, Brissett would have been the starter. But, there's competition. And there wasn't any competition. We went with Howell. If there was competition the previous year, Heineke would have started. Competition, 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 went with Wentz. Like, that is
That's
different
fair.
from what we have going on this year, and we're showing that, we're proving that, hey, he's going to get reps with the ones. And there's a little more nuance to it, right? Sometimes Jaden is taking reps with the second team offensive line, but the first team skill position players. Sometimes he's taking reps with the first team offensive line and the second team skill position players. It kind of changes as practice goes on, and vice versa with Marcus. So I think at this point in the year, plenty of work to be had, plenty of work to be done. I don't really care. I think there's plenty of work throughout training camp, and I think Dan Quinn will know, and he will be able to get a read on the locker room and on what's going on around there and when it is time to go ahead and crown Jaden. Because some of it is too, like, right now it's easy for Jaden to keep his foot on the gas, but maybe in 2-3 weeks, as training camp goes on, if he still hasn't been named starter, do some attitude problems start to come up? Does he start to get discouraged? I don't anticipate any of that, knowing Jaden for what Jaden is. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone does, but there is some of this that this has to go on for a certain period of time for us to pass all these tests. It's just a time thing. So
Well,
I'm not.
yeah, I think some of it too is, and you make some great points. Maybe some of it's setting the tone for the rest of the team. If
Sure.
your star QB, second round, second pick in the draft, doesn't automatically get anointed starter, it kind of really sets that tone of competition.
Yeah.
But I think you've got to draw a balance between that, which I said I'm cool with right now, until the more repetition, the more reps he gets, the more that starting unit gets the chance to. There's a limited number of days before the season starts, right? So I just feel like those reps are important. So there's got to be a balance there, and it'll be interesting. I mean, we'll keep an eye out as to when that announcement actually happens, and I think it's inevitable, right?
Yeah.
That's part of it's too is that everybody knows it. So why drag it out too much longer? I don't know.
Agreed.
Yeah,
I think. I mean, I'll keep it short on this note, but we're gonna have to do a JD hype meter next week, I think, because so far, I mean, from the guys that are there at training camp, from the videos that we're seeing, from all the reports that we're hearing, I hear a conscious effort to hold back on excitement and to like slow their roll down from what they're seeing from JD. So I've never heard that before in my time of paying attention. I was a little young when the Robert stuff was going on. I wasn't super closely paying attention the way that I do now. I've never heard that before. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm very excited. I'm ready to move on, and
I
maybe
think
we
there
check
was,
out the hype meter next week.
there's definitely similar hype around Robert, but you could just,
It's different
I,
this
I
time, man.
think that was the first time for many of us living through a top two pick in the draft as a quarterback. Obviously, super talented. We all know what happened with that story, but JD and his presser this week, it's just so impressive listening to him talk. He talks
Yeah.
like a vet. I think the fact that he's got those 4 years under the belt and he's a 24-year-old rookie, he's just got a maturity to him, which I think comes naturally to him. I think even if we knew him 2 years ago, I bet we would have heard a lot of the same things. But he's got such a different demeanor. It's, he's saying all the right things, but it's not robotic when you listen to him talk. It's like very relaxed, and that really bodes well for the type of demeanor that you need to be a successful quarterback in this league. I think you can't get too high or too low. Um, so, yeah, I mean, it's impressive. I was really impressed by a lot of things that he said in his presser,
Yeah.
for
And I
sure.
mean, we're looking through all of this through burgundy tinted glasses in July, right? But you can tell through talking to him, that's just who he is. Like, that's just Jaden, that's not him doing quarterback speak, saying all the right things in front of the media. You got a guy like Mark Sanchez was incredible in front of the media, not a great football player. But gave great press conferences,
As a quarterback, he was a pretty good broadcaster.
Exactly. That's a really clever way to put it, Bob. Well done. And same with RG3. He had a way of saying all the right things in front of the media, and then he couldn't. The locker room didn't care. So, but you could tell with JD, you could tell with his demeanor, you could tell with like you saw the clips of him messing around with Mikey Sanders still. while he's up. I'm gonna pop that name, man. It's gonna take a couple pick sixes from Mikey for me to get used to saying that where the R's and the L's are. It twists me up.
I
But
think
you
he
can
did
see
a good
those clips
job.
of them messing around with him, and that's another guy that's turned into a real leader for this team. But you can see, man, it just and the clips of him messing around with Sam Hartman and stuff. It just seems like he's himself when he's up there. He's authentic, and who himself is. I don't know if that's good English. Who Jaden Daniels is the perfect fit for where he needs to be in order to develop and become the guy.
Yeah, there's a really impressive quote that I just want to take out of the Warren Bros presser. Of course, he talked about wanting to compete. You mentioned around him, messing around with Sandustra, very comfortable on the podium. But the topic was Daniel wanting to be a leader, but also wanting to earn that right. And his quote is that's just me. I'm never going to put myself out there in the spotlight to think I'm bigger than anybody, better than anybody, Daniel
Yeah.
said. Everybody's equal on the field. You got to go out there and compete each and every day. So like, does that's different. I'm sorry. There's a lot of high draft picks that come in thinking that they're the man. And he's coming in with a level of humbleness. I'm sure he's got great confidence, and I'm sure he's expecting to be the starter. But you could see that he's just got his head down and he's working. I mean, his best friend on the team is likely to be the third or fourth string quarterback, right? There's a humbleness to him, and I think he's embracing it. And it'll be fun to watch. Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm super excited. But as we know, as we learned the hard way last year and several years here, quarterback play is great, but it is nothing without winning in the trenches. If
He
you
needs some
can't
help.
win in the trenches, ask Joe Burrow. If you can't win in the trenches, even the best quarterbacks in the world will suffer from it. So we've got plenty of news about the trenches here. It's time to get into a little big man talk here on the
Yep.
podcast. Let's start on the defensive side of the ball. Great news here. Johnny Newton cleared to play. You heard Adam Peters talk about it in Adam Peters' presser. Speaking of guys that can give a great press conference, I mean, Adam Peters should run for president, frankly, right? I mean, come on, that guy is money in front of. If he's half as good in the war room as he is in front of the media, this team is going to win a lot of Super Bowls. I mean, he's great, right? And he gave his press conference and he said about Johnny, he said, "Look, we've been trying to hold him back. Like he's dying to get out there. We're trying to remind him, man, you've got a 10, 12-year career ahead of you. Slow down. Like let's get you out there on the right foot, no pun intended." And next day you get the news that he's cleared and he's ready to go. So everything, our first bit of injury news with the new regime has gone exactly how they told us it was going to go. They were transparent the whole way, and he comes back ahead of schedule. Pop, how excited are you about that? That's my takeaway. I'm pumped for Johnny Newton, but I'm also pumped that we're not dealing with, compare this to the Curtis Samuels situation in the previous administration where you're going, where is this guy? And nobody wants to give you an update. And this one went exactly as planned. So I'm pumped about that more than anything.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I think he's a guy that had a first round grade, fell the second round, probably due to this foot injury. And if that's really cleared up and he's 100% healthy, which you got to trust the trainers and the doctors to believe that he's in if he's out there practicing. Um, it's exciting because I think that, like I said, I am excited about this defense. And I
Yeah.
think that this defense is going to take a huge leap, and he could be a great piece because you want those tackles to be rotational. And I don't know if you heard this story, but Fidarian Mathis, did I say that right? You can correct me on it. But Phil,
Yeah.
he was stuck in the Atlanta airport with me last weekend, and he was actually worried about making it back. So he caught a flight to a closer location and then drove to training camp to get there early and to leave nothing to chance about him being there on time. And that Dan Quinn shouted him out on that. So
That's awesome.
he's a guy that's got a lot to prove, but another second round pick. So I just think that those big guys on the line and the rotation effect that it's going to have, along with some of the guys we added on the edge, I think having Johnny Newton is a secret weapon for this group. It's going to be fun to watch that defensive line. I think, especially the interior. Big news to have Johnny back.
As desperate as you were, would you have rode back on Phil's lap on that plane and then carpool with him?
I would definitely carpool with
If
him.
Phil
I
was
wish I
cool with it?
knew. I wish I knew,
Oh man,
without a
come on,
doubt.
Phil, you got to give the boys a call, man. Come on.
I would have crawled in the trunk or something.
Yeah, we could have done an interview from the passenger seat. It would have gone
Exactly. That would have
viral,
been
man.
awesome.
Come on, Phil. Come on, Phil. We got to expand your platform a little bit, man. Dom and Pop's favorite tackle. Anyways, speaking of tackles, we've got Brandon Coleman starting at left tackle currently. He's taking snaps at left tackle. He's taking snaps with the first team at left tackle. He is the starter at the moment. And right now, still no pads on, no hitting. You don't really know. But he's taking snaps at left tackle and taking snaps at right tackle. So I think that's interesting. Kind of just.
Are you hearing that he's the starter? I'm not sure. I'm hearing
Right now, there are no starters, but right now he's taking snaps with the first team as left tackle. And so is Marcus Mariota at quarterback, so who knows, right? But right now he's taking snaps at the first team at left tackle. That is what's happening. So if that happens, man, we might be if that happens and he's good. Now that could be a sign that Lucas is not what we need him to be either. So that might be a sign of trouble. But if Brandon Coleman's really starting at left tackle, that could mean serious good stuff for the boys moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're doing a bit of rotation. I'm not sure anything is set in cement. I mean, I did see a quote on commanders.com that Scott Lucas still believes that Lucas is going to be the starter. They've rotated him in at right tackle too at times, which is great to see. But I think when we talk about the starting group, I think it's still to be determined, I'll say. But
sure.
Yeah, the fact that he's getting some snaps and you're hearing that he's getting some snaps with the starting group, that's pretty big.
Yeah.
It's encouraging.
It's massive. If he can help out at left tackle or right tackle this year, we will be much improved because Wiley is a pretty good left guard. So that could even create some interesting dynamics as we move forward. Maybe he hasn't been so great at right tackle, but maybe he can fill in at right guard. I don't know. It's an interesting situation with the offensive line because you really don't know. It's like a chicken or the egg thing with the line and Howell last year. Was Howell holding the ball too long? Was the line not giving Howell the opportunities that he needed to? We just don't know. It should be interesting to see how that shakes out. But with Brandon Coleman there at left tackle, things could get interesting. And I think if they think he's ready to start week 1, it could be the sign of good things.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I have my doubts still about whether or not he's going to be ready, but if he is, that's a big boost. I mean,
yeah.
I think Lucas, Allegretti, Biadish, Cosme, and Wiley, I would say still have the early edge in this.
Sure, agreed.
But that tackle spot, that left tackle spot, is still up for grabs. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. There's some interesting things there. I don't know, in terms of, there's a little bit of buzz around Trent Scott. That's not a name that we talk about that much.
Yeah, sure.
But, apparently he's getting some work as well. A big man from all accounts. So, we'll see. It's certainly, I think, we talk a lot about this team's going to go as far as Jaden Daniels, but it's probably going to be equally as far as that offensive line is going to be able to take us.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we pretty much covered it, Pop. I mean, you got a little more?
I was just going to say, somebody had a great point with some of the free agent signings we had last year. We thought that the offensive line was greatly improved, and look at what happened. So we're going to have to see it on the field, right? I mean.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's going to be what it really comes down to is what nobody's hitting yet. No pads are on at the moment. So as guys start to hit, as pads get on, as we start to get into those mid-August practices, we'll start to really get an idea. And, of course, preseason games, I mean, Pop, I think there might be some preseason football in like a week? Something like that?
Well, this week's that Hall of Fame game.
Right, this week's the Hall of Fame game, but the Commanders' first preseason game is coming up. I think we're inside of 2 weeks at this point. Yeah, August 10th. August 10th will be the first one, so they're going to have to start hitting soon. You are not going to have to listen to us talk about T-shirt and panties practice much longer. we are going to start to get into pads and real football. And we'll start to have some real talk about what's going on in the trenches. But I say that's it for what's going on the real gridiron pod. You want to get into a little bit of fantasy talk?
Yeah, excited to do this.
A little bit of fantasy football. So we're going to be reading off the Fantasy Pros top 10 for our 15 to 25 here. And then I guess we're just going to kind of be reacting to it, giving us our take on it, and then talking about, where do the Commanders rank in terms of fantasy football this year, and who are some guys, maybe some sleepers or some guys that you wouldn't mind drafting in those late rounds. Where is some value there? But let's
We
get
all got our
started
drafts coming up, right? So it's time to start to figure this out.
Time to start buckling down. So let's get started on this Fantasy Pros here. Fantasy Pros has Christian McCaffrey at the 1-1, CD Lamb at the 1-2, Tyreek Hill 1-3, Jamar Chase at the 4, Bijan Robinson 5, Justin Jefferson 6, Amon-Ra St. Brown 7, Breece Hall number 8, AJ Brown number 9, and Garrett Wilson number 10, with Pop's boy Puka Nacua right there at number 11. I don't know. Pop might take Terry McLaurin there at 11. We'll have to see. But that is the current shakeout for the top 10 there. I threw in Puka Nacua just to give Pop a little extra. But Pop, what are some of your reactions looking at that top 10? What do you think?
Son, I got to ask you a question.
Uh-huh.
Are you using the link that I sent you, or are you
I got to ask you a question. Do you listen, Pop? Because I told you, I said, we're not using the Yahoo Fantasy link because it's not 2009. I sent you the Fantasy Pros link in the email thread that you got the same link.
I missed that. All right, I got the same link now. I got the same link.
Let me get a hand up here, Pop. Let me get a hand up.
I apologize. I just want to be able to read it, see the right list. I'm cool with your using yours, not mine.
Good.
It was similar. It was similar.
It was similar. I mean, in that top 10, it's kind of hard to argue with. But what's your reaction on that top 10? I got a hot take, but I want to see what you think.
Well, I was surprised by seeing Justin Jefferson at 6. I'm not surprised at all. McCaffrey at 1. I think, with his bounce back Larry last year, I think last year the only reason people didn't pick him 1 because there was injury concerns. I guess that's always a possibility, but I definitely think he's the first guy off the board. I mean, do you agree?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
I think he will be. But I was surprised to see Justin Jefferson. Then CD Lamb at number 2, I just surprised me. Maybe it's just me sleep at the wheel. I know he's a really good player, but having him that high up was surprising. Justin Jefferson was my number one last year in our fantasy league. So I'm surprised he's out. But I guess it makes sense because of quarterback, right? Now that I'm thinking about it. He doesn't have the quarterback throwing to him that he did last year. I don't know. Give me your hot take.
My hot take is I don't have Christian McCaffrey at the 1-1.
Who do you got at number 1?
I got Tyreek Hill at number 1. I probably just directly flip Hill and McCaffrey there. I probably go Hill 1, Lamb 2, McCaffrey 3. And I think if you're drafting number 3 and you get McCaffrey there, you're doing backflips. But this is just for me personally, the way I like to build my fantasy teams. I think you just need explosiveness at the wide receiver position to win weeks. I think if a running back has a really good week, he has 22 points. If a wide receiver has a really good week, he might put up 35. And I think Tyreek Hill just still has the highest ceiling. And when you're drafting that high at the top of the round, you're not drafting again for 22 picks a lot of the time. So you need somebody that's just going to win you some weeks. You need somebody who's going to fill in for that lack of depth that you have. And I think for me, Tyreek Hill is just that guy that, you open up the fantasy app at 107 and he already has 18 points. And you go, how the heck did that happen? And I think he missed 6 games last year. And still, I mean, he would have cruised over 2,000 yards minus the games that he missed. So you got to factor in a little bit of that injury, but the same with McCaffrey. McCaffrey, you wonder, was that an outlier year with him being healthy for as long as he was, and then you saw him start to get dinged up in the playoffs towards the end of the year? You can't draft factoring in injuries, in my opinion, and for me, I'm drafting Tyreek any day of the week at number 1.
Yeah, I mean, if injuries are not a factor, I go with C-Mac all day because I think he's unique in this top 10 The only other running back is Bijan
Who
Robinson.
I think we're a little ahead of ourselves on Bijan
Right.
personally, but
So, I mean, he's unique in that he gets it running and he gets it passing. He's featured in both. He's the only
yeah,
guy. And I think he can rack up points there, and they love him. They absolutely love him. Shanahan loves him and loves featuring him. So, if health's not a factor, I would race to the podium, wouldn't use much time, pick Christian McCaffrey personally. I think, I think this next group, my opinion, you look at CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, it's like flip a coin. They're all great. And they all could have blowout years. It's going to come down to quarterback play. Maybe you don't go Justin Jefferson because of quarterback play.
yeah,
But, I'd probably agree with you with that. After CMAC, I'd go Tyreek over CeeDee Lamb.
sure.
I'm just not. Seeing CeeDee Lamb holding out like that situation in Dallas just seems so uh, fragile to
Well,
me.
we should at least have some clarity on that before we're actually
Of
drafting.
course,
I mean, we have another
yeah,
month, so I think if CD Lamb is not holding out and he's playing and Dak is playing, you have to take CD at number two. There's no conversation. CD is a
but
fantastic wide
you got a
receiver.
coach, potentially a coach, a receiver, and your star receiver and your quarterback on the last year of their contracts. Now you could say contract year guys typically perform great, but
Yeah, I mean, you're not.
that can go the other way too if things don't start out great and there's discontent. So it's going to be. I think I hope it goes up in flames, obviously, but
Of
Dallas is
course.
going to be a real interesting watch. But what else do you like? Any other thoughts on this top 10? Any other
I'm just not.
surprises or changes you would make?
Yeah, I'm taking Amon Ra above Justin Jefferson and Bijan Robinson probably at number five. I'm very high on Amon Ra. I'm also taking Brees Hall as my number one running back this year. I don't think Bijan Robinson, the talent profile is there. And if I'm drafting him towards the end of the first round, I'm happy. But at that spot, I can't justify it just because we haven't seen it yet. And Atlanta brought in Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins is going to throw for 5,000 yards like Kirk Cousins usually does, there just is not going to be a ton of rushing volume there. And they brought in the passing games coordinator from Los Angeles as their offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson. And he is going to want to throw the ball. McVay likes to throw the ball. They've had good running backs there, but they like to throw the ball. So I think Kirk is going to fling it. You look at the running back usage in Minnesota over the last couple of years when they didn't have Dalvin Cook, not as hot. I think you're gonna see Atlanta flinging the ball around the yard a lot and probably playing from behind a decent bit because that defense is not very good. So I don't see where Bijan Robinson is the best running back in football other than Christian McCaffrey. I don't have him that high. I have him maybe closer to 4 or 5. I have Brees Hall above him for sure.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. Like a guy like would you go Bijan over Saquon?
No. Or yes, I would, of course. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'd take Bijan over Saquon.
because
But I
that's the
think,
next running back. It looks like off the board at 14.
well, Jameer Gibbs at 12. But I
Yeah,
would take,
Jameer Gibbs.
yeah, I would take uh, Gibbs and Bijan. I think you got to go Bijan because there's no more competition there. I personally took ETN over Bijan in my dynasty draft earlier in the year, and that's a little different because it's dynasty. But I'm not. I just think Bijan's being overdrafted at this price. I could be wrong, but those are my two hot takes. I don't take McCaffrey at number one, and I think Bijan's overdrafted right now.
Yeah, I mean, and Gibbs is kind of in that shared running back role too, right? I mean,
Well, with Montgomery, yeah,
Montgomery, right? And Montgomery was pretty productive last year, so yeah, that's interesting
yep. You and I both had Montgomery
in different
last
leagues.
year,
Yeah,
and we both did. I mean, Montgomery. I think we were both in situations where Montgomery kind of saved our teams from being pretty bad. Our teams would have been pretty bad without Montgomery.
yeah, yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but yeah, he's a savior last year for the Dom and Pop household. But you want to talk 5 minutes about where these Commanders rank, Pop?
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe maybe a bit discouraging. But I mean, it'd be interesting to kind of just run through where do the top 5 commander guys rank, and then maybe if we had to pick one who we think might be a surprise or climbing the board, who would that be?
Yeah. So you got to look through the board here, and you've got McLaurin. Obviously, is going to be that top wide receiver. And I think where is he coming off the board exactly here, Pop? It's after the top 50 according to PFF.
Yeah, I think he's
Um,
at 60 according to
yeah.
PFF. Yeah,
So that's decent value there. I don't mind taking him at 60. I think because you're looking at a guy that, I mean, if things go right in the offense, if you look at around where some of the other guys are getting drafted, like he's Fantasy Pros has him at 62 here. He's getting drafted right around like Keenan Allen, Ramondre Stevenson, Dak Prescott. Like these are guys that you could easily see him outperforming if the offense takes off at the way you expect them to take off. But go ahead and go through the rest, Pop.
yeah. According to PFF, you got um, Terry McLaurin at 60. The next off the board would be Jaden Daniels at number 99. So obviously JD has a lot of upside potential here. And then third commander that would come off the board would be Brian Robertson Jr. at number 102. So pretty
Yeah,
soon after. And then quickly after that, Austin Eckler at number 107. So that's the top 4. And then you got to wait till the 150th pick. And Jahan Dotson is the 5th commander off the board. So I guess at that point, you might be talking free agents or, that kind of thing. I think a guy maybe to keep an eye out for is maybe a depth tight end, might be a Zach Ertz.
yeah,
You might pick him as a second tight end, but I can't really think of anyone else. There isn't really
yeah.
anyone else, right?
I mean, I don't mind.
Offensively.
I don't mind drafting Zach Ertz if you just punt tight end, which is something that I usually do, unless I get George Kittle. I usually punt tight end because Kittle seems to always get drafted 2-3 rounds behind
Right.
the premier guys, but still have the capacity to be a premier guy. So I always buy Kittle when I can. But other than that, I'll just punt tight end and get somebody in my last couple of rounds because
Do you
usually
remember how many, so like in a 10-team league, how many picks does everybody typically get on average?
16 to 17, depending on your league.
All right. So 170 picks, 160, 170 picks. So all these guys potentially would get picked per
Barely.
PFF grades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Brian Robinson, there's a ton of value there as a late round running back that might end up starting on your lineup later on in the season. Again, I think if you see this team take off and you see the offense get going, which is possible with a rookie quarterback, you could see Brian Robinson really put in some work in the goal line situations, and you wonder, like with him and Eckler, who's going to be scoring those touchdowns there.
That's the
And
danger, right?
if the offense gets going, and if there will be some touchdown upside in one of those two guys, and that's why I like Ertz out of all of these in terms of like a value pick. Ertz is my favorite because I think you will see across the NFL rookie quarterback, young, veteran, reliable tight end. It becomes kind of like a safety blanket. 3rd and 4, where's Zach? You know, um, 1st and goal with 7 yards out, we're going to pass. Where's Zach? Those kind of situations you're looking for Ertz. And he's got a chip on his shoulder, and if he can stay healthy, I think he could. It's not crazy to assume that he could finish as a top 12 tight end.
Yeah, no, I do think he's somebody that I would consider, taking, like you said, if he kind of punted tight end. And you never know. I mean, he could have a really productive season. It's an interesting one between B. Rob and Eckler. It gives me maybe a poor man's, Gibbs and Montgomery to a degree, right? There's going to be
poor
some
man's, but yes.
there's going to be that split there, and you're just not sure which guy's going to be more productive than the other. That could share the load. What do you think about Jaden Daniels though? Like, is he going to be someone's QB1 in the draft?
It's not going to be mine.
High risk, high reward.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't mind like taking JD if you are kind of like if you're in like a keeper league. where you can keep one of the guys in the late rounds that you get, or if you're just going to punt the quarterback position and maybe pair him with like a Jared Goff or like a late round or like a Kirk Cousins or a Aaron Rodgers or one of those veterans that will be a steady hand, and then maybe you hope. That's kind of what I did last year. Like I took Herbert, and then I also took Anthony Richardson late. Um, I would kind of do Daniels that same kind of way. Like I would take like a
Yeah.
late value quarterback and then also take Daniels. Which that you might see me do. Who knows? We'll have to see how the board falls. But
Fun segment.
yeah,
Fun segment.
Daniels can make you some money for sure if things go the way we're hoping slash kind of starting to project that they'll go. But let's wrap this thing up, Pop. It's been a good segment. I know you got a busy night of rum and cokes and beach ahead of you, so I don't want to hold you any longer.
That's it. That's it. Normally the boy's out here with us, but he's got work, so
Yeah,
definitely missing him.
busy.
Missing him. You guys have been around for a couple of years. We usually do an in-person one out here at the beach, but we'll get there. We'll get there next time. We're gonna road game coming up that we're gonna check out. We'll tease that and let you know which one that we'll be going to see live there in the season.
Definitely. But without further ado, what do you say we wrap this thing up, Pop?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, guys, I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
And thank you for another great week, everybody.